Okay. There you go.
Good morning, everybody. you don't see me, although maybe I'll give you a little quick glimpse. Tell me if you see me now.
Yeah.
Hello. Good morning. Today is Tuesday, the 6th of July. And what you see here is me driving back from a long weekend at the cabin. I have with me my young son, right there, Jack, and a lot of garbage because there's no garbage pickup in the country. So I have to bring the garbage back with me. So that just lets you know how dedicated I am, that I have the windows up, I'm breathing in garbage air in order to have this call. But it's important that we have the call because there's a lot going on. I'm going to go off video so we don't use too much bandwidth. Hang on one second. Oh, wait. My son's doing it. There we go. So it was, hopefully everybody had a wonderful 4th of July. We certainly did upstate, had a great time, set up some fireworks, celebrated our independence, the independence that's being eroded as we speak. There's a lot of irons in the fire in Washington to really come at the gun industry hard. And unfortunately for FFLs, particularly retailers, those crosshairs are aimed at you, which is nothing new. I mean, this is sort of the Democrat wartime footing, where instead of chasing criminals, they chase federal firearms licensees. And one of the most disconcerting parts of that occurred after our symposium, but before today, is the fact that they are moving towards a zero tolerance policy when it comes to FFLs and willful violations. So they being the left and they being the general public, don't understand that a willful violation could be something as simple as making a mistake on a form more than once. That's because they know very little about gun laws and they don't ask for input or advice. So what you have is a perfect storm of the potential for Dave Chipman, an anti-gun lobbyist, to become the director of the ATF, unless I missed something in the last 24 hours, which I don't think I did. That's still a possibility. And you have a zero tolerance policy that's going to go into effect, which means even with your I's crossed or I's dotted and T's crossed, if you miss one dotted I or one crossed T, there's a possibility that they're going to come after your license. So to that end, we need to make sure everybody's licenses are pristine. They don't have any black marks from the past on them. And if they do, they should get in touch with us and we should work towards getting you some new licenses without a history, A. And B, you should be working with us to obtain hip pocket licenses or side licenses that we would keep and only spring out if we needed to surrender a compromised license. It's a very tricky, very precarious world that we're in, and we won't really know just how hard they're enforcing this zero tolerance policy until the first person goes up in flames. I'm fairly confident, well, actually not fairly, I'm very confident that first person that goes up in flames will not be the current FFLGuard client. But that doesn't mean we should fall asleep at the switch and say, oh, well, we've got FFLGuard, we've got Chris. If anything goes wrong, they got our backs. Yeah, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to be going into full-blown litigation with ATF for you when I'm giving you sound advice before the shit hits the fan. And that sound advice is we need to evaluate the history of your existing FFL and how many pock marks may be on it, because those black marks from the past, if they are repeated, that could ostensibly be something that causes the loss of license. So that's number one. And number two, either with a new license or with an older license that is crystal clear, we still want to consider getting pocket licenses in case we need to surrender the old one and dispose of all of our inventory onto the new one and continue business that way. So these are things I need everybody who's on the call, and you will see some measure of email that suggests it. I wouldn't put it in writing without it being fully lawyered up, but those of you on the call should know you're hearing it from from the horse's mouth. This is what we need to do. This is what you need to evaluate. This is what you need to be in touch with my brother and Avis, the client relations team as a whole, as to how we can help make sure you're insulated for at least the next few years. Those are the things that have been on my mind. I can certainly turn it over to the floor. Brian, if you want to pick up on help desk, all things having to do with client relations, and then you pass the baton up onto Rick, Mike. I don't know if Hank has joined us because I can't see, or anybody else, but I'll just go quiet. You can mute me, and if I hear something, I'll jump in.
Yeah, and Chuck has joined us this morning as well, so I assume Chuck's got maybe a little something to throw in. So we will just real quick on the help desk. The only thing, obviously, as you can imagine, the help desk is incredibly busy. You know, there is a lot going on. People are using the library. We do appreciate that, and we just want you to remember one other thing, that we are focused on federal rules and regulations at FFLGuard. If you have a state question, like something happened in Texas or something happened in Indiana, or, you know, anything state related, please remember to look in the library first. There's a category under state law. So, and then it'll say state law, and it'll have the state right next to it as to where the question pertains to. So if there are any questions you have from your state, please search that first. And then if you really need an answer, we can do the research and give you the discounted rates on the research. But please remember that state law is outside of the scope of FFLGuard, unless of course you're in California and you have the incredibly handsome Chuck Michele at your disposal. How about you, Avis? What do you got going on over there? Anything that we need to let anybody know that I forgot?
No, just that if you have had an inspection, make sure that you have sent us any paperwork that you have received from the ATF, even if it was a year ago. It's best for us to have it on file. That way we can also see what is going on and what people are being cited for.
Okay. So Chuck, did you have anything that you wanted to talk about this morning? I'd like to get you rolling in case you got some work to do before California.
On the subject of zero tolerance, I would just kind of give you guys an illustration of how we ran up against that in California. And one of the most prominent things that they used to cite people for was writing in LA instead of spelling out Los Angeles. That's how petty this stuff can get. So you just have to be meticulous in your paperwork, and you're keeping all your F4473s pristine, your A&D book completely up to date, everything in the right column and everything spelled out.
And we've seen that before, where we had a client in Arizona, and I think he received 57 violations for putting PHX instead of Phoenix. You know, people, you know, that happens a lot in down in Georgia, where you get ATL for Atlanta, you know, PHX for Phoenix, LA for Los Angeles. Yeah, just you have to write out the full city, county, and state there. Mr. Bouchard, what's going on that you are aware of with Mr. Chipman and all the ATF activities?
Well, they're saying that they may put Chipman's vote to the full Senate here in the next couple of weeks when they do come back. I don't know if that's true or not. Everything I've heard is they're not sure they have enough votes. If a couple of Democratic senators oppose it, then they're not going to get him through. But other than that, I have not heard anything. And as far as an actor, Marvin Richardson, who is the deputy, is not officially the actor. He's not been designated officially as an acting. So the clock is not running on his 210 days under acting, but he's informally taking care of things. We spoke with ATF after our symposium. They were very happy with the outcome, very happy they were invited. Looking forward to doing this again in the future. And also, they said, if there are questions, don't wait till the symposium every year. If you've got questions, send those in and they'll certainly answer those. I know from my time with ATF in the past, we've had similar quote direction. So I'll leave it at that, from the administration about how we should handle things. Often those things come out before they talk to the people who have to execute the orders. And eventually what they do find out is it's not as easily as just saying, just revoke people's licenses. There's a lot more involved that most of you know. So cooler heads prevail after a while, after these things are said, when the reality checks in that it's not going to be that easy to just put somebody out of business that easy, particularly when there's a history of how ATF acted for violations in the past. So, if we find out more from them, they're pretty tight-lipped now because they really don't know what they're going to have to do. It's easy to say things from the administration. Having to execute it is a lot different. But pending any questions, that's all I've got.
So am I muted, Brian? Am I not?
No, you're
Can
on.
you hear me? So, Mike, in our long history together, so now we go back many years, I think that I recall there always being, before the cooler heads prevail, there always being some example of why whatever policy won't work, right? There's always some unfortunate FFL who gets struck by lightning that ends up in the middle of the shitstorm that may ultimately resolve in their favor because it comes out that it's easier said than done to have a zero tolerance policy. But what I want everybody in FFLGuard to know is that I don't want one of us to be the example. I don't want one of us to be caught in between, a Justice Department directive or an Biden administration directive and the reality of what happens on the ground. So to that end, notwithstanding the hope and prayer that, hey, ultimately they'll realize you can't just revoke someone simply. You have to, you have to do it through due process, and there's a lot more to it. I would hope that we still do the insulating practices, make sure our licenses are pristine. If we need to do a fresh start, let's fresh start a license. If we need to get some hip pocket licenses, let's do that. I don't want to be the example. I don't want to be the Brinks armored car. I've been to that movie. I don't want to be the guns and ammo going to the OIG. I've been to that movie. Let's just stay below the radar and make sure everyone is, business uninterrupted, because that's what's most important.
Yeah, a lot of this is going to depend on how centralized ATF's efforts are going to be. If they're going to let the field divisions do their own thing, we've seen that before. It's not very good because there's no consistency, and some people who are very aggressive, take actions that aren't consistent with what they're doing in the rest of the country. So it's all going to depend on if they're going to go back to centralizing things where headquarters has some oversight for consistency. But for the last couple of years, they haven't really done that much.
Alrighty. All right. I don't see. Let's see. I know we do. We have one client already ticking in that we did get a ticket over the weekend. They're already looking to do their pocket FFL. So yes, Debbie should be in touch. Actually, I think Avis just touched in on that ticket there, didn't you, Ava? So she disappeared. Mr. Rick, what's going on in your world, sir? You got to unmute yourself.
Hey,
There you go.
I've really purged through both NPRs to understand what they're doing. There has been a group formed to go after the one on the arm brace, and I've been invited to participate, but nothing's come of that yet. I'll talk about the one of, I hate to use the term ghost gun, homemade firearms. That is one of the ones that the administration really is pushing to get done, because that's what they claim is the major crime issue throughout all these cities. Of course, it's homemade firearms that's creating all these murders in all these different cities. So that's the one they're really pushing the hardest on. I don't see that going into effect till about January. I don't know if there'll be enough to overturn that. The biggest thing, there's two big effects of that. If I make a homemade firearm, I can make my homemade firearm. I don't have to sterilize it. But if I take that firearm and put it into commerce, some way, somehow, I'm going to have to get that sterilized. And then it's going to be recorded in a homemade firearm book that the gunsmith or the manufacturer has. So you're going to have gunsmiths to say, I'm not going to do this. The other issue is, if I take this to a gunsmith to repair it, that has not been answered. It's kind of vague. Does the gunsmith have to sterilize it before he can even work on it? So that's going to hurt the regular small gunsmith. Now, on the arm brace issue, that's going to be fought very, very aggressively. For simple reasons, if you spend the time that a lot of us don't have and go through that NPRM, and it talks about the shape, the size, everything is very, very subjective. They've basically given a young man or a young lady authority to look at something and say, well, I don't think it's an arm brace. Well, I think it's too big in the rear. Well, I think you can't aim in with this. Well, I think it's too heavy. I think it looks like it's not too much. I don't like the color. You shouldn't need an arm brace if you're using a conventional firearm like a 1911 or a Glock. So they're basically giving people the authority to be medical doctors, to be just very subjective and determine what is not an arm brace. And if you read the NPRM, some of the arm braces, my wife's knocking on the window outside, some of the arm braces that have been approved are no longer approved. So right then and there, you can see it right in the NPRM. Oh, I see what happens. She knocked herself out. I'll talk real quick. In the NPRM, 2 arm braces that are approved are now no longer going to be approved. And how many tens of thousands of these been sold? So this is the one that it creates the biggest issue. I think the other one is a big issue, but the notice of proposed rulemaking on the arm brace is going to be a serious issue. It'll take me about 10 seconds to run and unlock the door. But that's what I have on the 2 NPRMs.
Hey, Brian, do we have Hank on the call today? Avis, Brian, hello.
Sorry, we do not have Hank on the call today. He's probably still enjoying his holiday weekend.
Okay.
So
all right. So
heard from all of our professionals on the call today.
with that being said, we will certainly provide the video recap of this by email in the next on Friday's e-blast, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're happy to take any questions in the meantime that have come out of this call today, but our next call will be August 2nd, I believe is the first Monday of the month. same bat time. We'll circulate that. And reminder that there's a California call after this at
12 o'clock.
12 o'clock Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Hopefully Chuck and his merry men are available for that. In the meantime, please feel free to reach out. We're here to talk. You know that. I'm always available. So we'll talk to everyone next month.